Hey everybody. I wanted to talk vampires today because I wanted to talk vampires, and I only got about 30 minutes before I'll have to end the stream. But I'll probably return to this idea afterwards, later on in life. Probably later on this week, in all honesty, because vampires been on my mind lately. And how do I put this? Okay. I don't like how vampires are depicted in fiction. And there's a very specific reason for that, because especially in tabletop RPGs. And it bothers me. So I how do I put this? One second. Let me get a sip. So, yeah. Okay. So, here's the deal. All right. Vampires are vampires are complicated, but not at the same time. People always go with vampires are monsters. They are the evilest thing on the planet, no matter what. Need to be evil. They have to be evil. And I hate that depiction of vampires. Why do vampires have to be evil? Even the very first vampire, Dracula, wasn't evil for the sakes of evil. He was nuanced. He had levels to why he was the way that he was. And for people to go, oh, well, vampires are just, that's what they are. They're evil. They are signed with the devil, or they're signed with what whatever evil patron deity you want to have in your game. And I think or in your stories, and I think that's kind of a lame use of the vampires. And I want to I want to try to take away from that and almost basically fix that ideology. Let's get some art of one of the first vampire queens and vampire characters in TTRPGs. Palace of the Vampire Queen right here. A really good one of the first D&D modules ever made. And I think that's important to take note of, is that vampires have been ingrained in tabletop and fantasy lore, and that's why I want to discuss them. So how do you discuss a vampire and what they are? Well, in tabletop RPGs, it's common for, especially in D&D, that, oh no, you got a disease that's going to give you vampirism, and if you don't get it cured, well, guess what, buckaroo? You don't get to play your character anymore because they're automatically evil. And that's fucking lame. I don't like the idea that all of a sudden your character is evil because they got a disease, a curse placed on them. I can understand if it's like making your character think evil thoughts, but typically the reasons why the first vampires happen is because they themselves were evil and greedy and were tempted by a higher being. Dracula was made into a vampire by commonly by making a deal with the devil, or at least that's what the belief was and everything. There's other vampires that, in the Elder Scrolls lore, that they made a deal with Molag Bal, or they offered themselves up to Molag Bal, and that's really neat and interesting. And then there's different versions of vampires in different media that don't really have specific versions. Looking at the Vampire's Apprentice, and um, it gets really watery once you start looking at other forms of media. If somebody fucking says Twilight, so vampires don't have to be evil. When you get bit, you don't have to be evil. Even in the Elder Scrolls, where people commonly refer to vampires as beings of pure evil, that's just not the case, because then you have vampires that's like Serana and Serana's mother. Serana's mother's not a great person, but they don't want to see their husband make the world eternally dark, so that's something. And then Serana, she's a vampire, but she still fucking knows not to, destroy their world. And the funny thing is that your player character in Skyrim can become a vampire, but you're not instantly evil because of it. And in previous Elder Scrolls games, vampirism had different effects on you. So I think it's important to try and differentiate that, so that way it's not so cut and dry. Well, even Vampire's Apprentice has nuanced vampires, where you have the good guy, quote-unquote, vampires that are in the carnival, and then you have the bad guy ones that aren't. And it's clear cut. Okay, these are the good guys, these are the bad guys, and there's some that's vampires and then the good guy side. So how do you have good guy vampires if vampires are always instantly evil? And I know it's different setting per setting, but I don't think it has to be. Because if your default is that, oh, vampires are so evil and blah, they're so powerful and there's no way to balance them for a player character, and I call bullshit on that. And how am I going to call bullshit on that? Well, it's very simple, everybody. Vampires have fucking weaknesses. That's right, Jim. Weaknesses. They have fucking weaknesses. What are these weaknesses that vampires have? Well, I'm glad you asked, Jim Bob. So, I have a fucking full-on list that I had a discussion in my Discord server about, and if you want to join my Discord server, you can find it down below. But just let's see. They're weak to anything that's holy. They are weak to stakes, sometimes specifically oak wood stakes only. Garlic, holy symbols. Doesn't have to just be a cross, by the way. What else is there? Can't cross running water. Can't enter homes freely. There's some play in there where it can be, maybe they can't enter into a inn's room, or they can't enter into a but they can enter into the inn itself, the tavern itself, without an invite. Who knows? Silver is another one. Fire, sometimes. Sorry. Had to get another drink. Ah! Okay. So, gotta put in an earbud because we might have a guest in a second. Also, do. Okay. Anyways, the fuck's WOD Apollo? Okay. Anyways, fire sometimes, and then what were some other ones that they listed off in my server? I actually have to keep going back and looking in there. Oh, um, sometimes healing magic or just positive magic. Anything that's like positive, like it enforces or boosts people, heals people. Um Positive energy is the way that's described for D&D. Ah, I think I'm getting sick, everybody. Let's see. Let's see. Sometime in some depictions, you have to kill. Take if you the only way to kill some vampire. If you kill one vampire, you kill the whole. If you sometimes if you kill the head vampire, all the lesser vampires die that were made. Shit. That were made by him. We should probably go with them. Some are weak to the cold. There are some vampires out there that are weak to coldness, so then they can't go outside when it's cold out. I'm trying to think of other vampires. Right, the biggest one in the fucking room that I haven't wrote down yet. Weak to sunlight. Now, this isn't always the case, mind you. Sometimes it just needs to be direct sunlight, like, say, in Van Helsing, where they go outside, but it's all the sun's covered up in clouds, and then they have to go into the well to hide themselves until the sun gets covered up again, which is really neat. So these are all the weaknesses. You can come up with more, though, if you're going to implement your own vampires into your own settings. You can come up with more weaknesses. Like, maybe it's not just garlic. Maybe it's anything that's like garlic, like, say, onions. Like, let's just go wild with it, okay? Onions. Fucking turnips. Just anything that any vegetable that grows in the ground. Why don't we just go like any vegetable that forms in the ground? So then you can have vampires that are like fucking weak to potatoes. Potatoes, onion, turnips. Fucking Peach would be on a roll there, baby. Fucking carrots. You get the idea. Essentially, it's just don't fucking you don't have to stay restricted to what's in culture and stuff like that. Did I already put down running water? Oh yeah, they can't cross running water. Like, and another thing is they need blood. So, specifically, if you really want to get technical, they need mostly human blood. Now, there are some forms of medias where, like, they drink pig's blood, or, like, how do I put this? They drink, like, pig's blood, animal blood, shit like that. Don't have to be the case. You could make it just humanoid blood. So, there's a shit ton that can be done with just vampire weaknesses alone, and then there's stuff that's, like, maybe in the modern age that have been made that has been discovered. Like, maybe there's vampires that are weak to camera flash. That would be kind of fucking sad, really, but hey. Vampires can't be seen in mirrors, so maybe there's a way to harness mirrors to as a weapon, you know, because the mirrors have silver in them. So what if you like flash flash light over those silver mirrors and it reflects off? You know, like there's different things that you can implement. That's not just, oh my god, these vampires are so strong. And then, you know, let's look at these vampires' strengths and abilities. We're not going to be looking at Skyrim or any of the Elder Scrolls for their vampire abilities, because there's that vampire drain ability that, like, lets you suck life force from the target like 20 feet away, and that's just kind of lame. So we're not going to go with that, but so that's the fucking weaknesses, okay? So we're gonna untransparent that now. All right, powers. What can vampires fucking do? Now, a lot of you might be asking, well, we all know what vampires can do. They turn into a bat. Not always. They can. There's some iterations that they can turn into a bat or wolf or rats, apparently, which was really fucking neat to learn. I'm just gonna say that right now. Um, they can either turn into mist. There's some forms that let them take on like a gargoyle like appearance, almost um into a like vampire form monster thing. There's a lot of just turning into this, turning into that. There's other weaknesses that I just thought of. Like there's some where they have to sleep in a coffin, their coffin that has like that's like on the ground of where they're from, their homeland. So like there's plenty to do with vampire weaknesses. There's a lot of ways that you can kill a vampire, but really they don't have a whole lot going for them powers wise. Like they can turn into a bat. I guess you could say that they have super strength and speed. And I almost want to say that their super speed isn't really them with super speed almost, but it kind of is, and you see it. Oh, they can fly. They can call for bats. What else can they do? Replenish. Oh, they have a natural regeneration. Um, oh, they have claws. Some do. Um, oh, on walls. Oh, hypnosis. charm. Some vampires can steal souls and then summon those souls to work to fight for them later. What else can they do? Make thralls potentially, make ghouls, and make other vampires. I feel like there's a few more that I'm missing here. Um, I also need to be able to see the chat just in case there's anybody that talks. I doubt it will happen, but I'm trying to think. I'm gonna screenshot this and share it in my Discord server because everybody's in the Discord. There's people in the Discord server. They're talking about it. Trying to think. Because I have the weaknesses down. And there's still more weaknesses that I can need to come up with. Huh. Oh, I need to fit that back to screen. That'll do. That'll do, pig. That'll do. You can just fucking. Alright. Blood magic, potentially. But that's not always a guarantee. What else? Really, that's about it. Like, I suppose. Let me pull out the monster manual for D&D. And then I'll look up the Shadow Dark stat block and see what vampires have, because that's where I'm going to next with all this is Shadow Dark. Vampires, here we go. Vampires, they have shape change. Which we already included. They're resistant to non-magical attacks from the sounds of it in the book. But I don't really. Yeah, they really don't have. They really don't have a whole lot going for them. Like, some people are gonna say, "Oh, but they have the super strength and stuff." Yeah, but you don't have to make that instant. No vampire is gonna be strong instantly. So I think. Honestly, that's really all that there is to it. Like, let me look up the Shadow Dark vampire now. Some vampires, I will say this, can probably, like, blend. Some might blend into shadows. And that's all I can think of. I don't think there's anything major that I'm missing. So, we're going to move this as a whole down here. And then... Okay, so we have their powers and weaknesses right here. And they pretty much even out. And if you wanted to try to, like, figure out mechanics for how, like, to make this work, it wouldn't really be that hard. And some of those powers and weaknesses are big maybes, but that's really not hard to work around and work with. And maybe there's more obvious ones that I'm forgetting about. But if I'm forgetting about them, then that just means that you know something I don't know. And that's perfectly fine. I'm scrolling through the Shadow Dark. Alright. Ah. So here's a few vampire things. From the Shadow Dark, there was one that was like they have a great sword that they can throw. So like they have magic potentially. That's up to you. But I think making them just have magic is kind of eh. Okay, so here's what the standard vampire has. They have the must sleep in a coffin daily or loses 2d6 HP each day that can't be healed until rested in a coffin. They take 3d8 damage each round in direct sunlight and cannot be killed unless pierced through the heart with a wooden stake while at 0 HP. Like, but that doesn't mean they can't just be, knocked out. So, I think there's a lot that can be done with vampires to make them weak compared to, as a player character and balanced. So, now that we kind of got that sorted, I'll return another day and I'm going to go over how I would implement a vampire player character in Shadow Dark. Because there is plenty of stuff here that you can use to implement a player character. And spoiler alert, how I would do it is by a player character class. And I'll go ahead and even give a bigger spoiler warning. Here's how I would implement it as a class. It's not a class you can start out with unless the DM really wants to be mean, but we'll get into that when I stream how making the class. But essentially, let's say you play like 4 levels as a fighter, and then you get bit by a vampire. Well, guess what? You're no longer a fighter. You still have all the stuff that you had gained from those previous 4 levels, but now you have all the weaknesses of a vampire, whatever they may be, whether it be to holy or whatever. It's really just up to the DM. And then you also, next time you level up, and from the moment forward, every single time you level up, you get a level in the vampire class. So that progresses further. And if you want to go back to being a fighter, well, man, you better get this curse healed. People in the Shadow Dark Discord server were talking about how vampires are these power fantasy if people want to play them in a game. And it's like, no, it doesn't have to be. You can make it balanced. They have plenty of fucking weaknesses. And if somebody learns that there's a vampire going around the towns and stuff like that, maybe, have people hunting said vampire? Even if that vampire isn't doing anything evil, people are still gonna have prejudice. I mean, shit. People had prejudice in the Discord server about vampires are evil no matter what. And it's just like, why do they have to be evil no matter what? I think that's kind of lame, because here's the thing, is Bethesda had good vampires in Fallout fucking 3. If you want to consider those vampires, they were more like cannibals that cinched off their cannibalism by drinking blood. Then you had good vampires in Skyrim, good vampires in Vampire's Apprentice. I am sure that there's more good guy vampires out there that I'm forgetting than that. I think the Castlevania TV show has a good guy vampire. Don't quote me on that. Technically, Hellsing Ultimate, Alucard is technically a good guy vampire. Technically, he's the protagonist, so he did kill all the Nazis and all that. So really, it's up to you on how you want to determine that one. But there is plenty of ways to do good guy vampires or morally gray vampires or vampires that are evil or just vampire player characters in general. You don't have to make them instantly go evil. And I'm going to fucking make something for vampires, for Shadowdark specifically, that is a vampire class and is meant to be taken or meant to be given to a player through vampirism later down the line. Now, there's plenty of things that you can do with this that you can help make them different. But that is all for now. I'll talk to you all